The air smelled like dust, sweat, and arrogance. Nia took her first step onto the concrete yard of the elite tactical training facility, her backpack hanging by a single thread and her sneakers so worn that the toes were already poking out. All around her stood recruits twice her size, twice as loud, and 10 times as judgmental. She could feel their eyes before she even raised her own, a few smirks, one full-on laugh, and one cold stare from a tall, muscular white guy in the center of the group, arms folded like a wall. He looked at her like she was a joke someone had written into a serious book. Nia straightened her spine anyway. She didn't come here to be liked. She came here because no one thought she could. That reason alone was enough to bring her miles from home with no support, no gear, and no room to fail. "Check this out," one of the recruits whispered loudly, nudging the guy beside him. "We got ourselves a charity case." A round of low chuckles followed. Nia ignored them. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Sometimes silence is louder than any punch. But the laughter kept going. Louder. Now, the tall guy stepped forward. "You lost, sweetheart. This isn't the receptionist desk." Some of them laughed harder. Others just watched, curious to see what she'd do. Nia turned toward him slowly, meeting his eyes. "No," she said calmly. "I'm right where I belong." He grinned. "Is that right? Then why don't you show us during orientation? If you don't pass out first." The whistle blew and the recruits lined up. The instructor, a stone-faced man named Briggs, explained the first drill: obstacle course, rope climbs, wall jumps, mud pits, crawling under barbed wire. Failure to complete in 12 minutes means you fail the day. Fail the day 3 times, and you're out. Nia's heart pounded. She had trained for this alone. No fancy gym, no coach. Just street pull-up bars and running shoes that were older than some people's little brothers. But she nodded and took her place at the start line. When her turn came, she ran like it was the only thing keeping her alive. The walls were harder than she expected. The ropes tore at her palms. She slipped twice in the mud. Her time? 13 minutes, 27 seconds. Not the worst, but above the cutoff. As she bent over to catch her breath, she heard a snicker. She looked up. The tall guy Jace held her water bottle. "Looking for this?" he said. "Oops." He tossed it into the mud. Everyone laughed. Nia stared at the bottle half buried in dirt. "Pick it up," she said. Jace stepped closer. "Or what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked over, picked up her bottle silently, wiped the top on her shirt, and drank. Jace smirked. "Tell you what?" he said. "I'll give you one chance. Tomorrow, we go again. If you beat my time, I'll shut up. If not, you quit." The whole crowd turned quiet. Even Briggs raised an eyebrow. "Are we clear?" Jace said loudly. Nia looked him in the eyes and said, "Crystal." The crowd broke into murmurs. No one had ever challenged Jace like that. Not in front of everyone, and certainly not someone like her. That night, Nia sat alone on her bunk, stitching the hole in her sneaker with dental floss. Her hands ached, her arms throbbed, but her mind was fire. She wasn't afraid of pain. She had known worse. Hunger, eviction, doors slammed in her face, and more times than she could count, the look that said, "You don't belong." She wasn't here to fit in. She was here to break through. Before lights out, one of the quieter recruits, Max, passed by and muttered, "Nice job today. You got guts." She gave him a small nod. She didn't need a crowd, just enough to believe. Morning came with a horn and blinding sun. Briggs stood before them with a clipboard. "Today's obstacle run is timed. Step up if you want to challenge yesterday's record." Jace stepped forward, all swagger and sneer. "Let's do this." Then, slowly, Nia stepped beside him. Gasps. Some laughter. Briggs stared at her. "You sure?" She nodded once. Jace ran first. Fast, strong, smooth. He finished in 8 minutes 41 seconds. Everyone clapped. He stood at the end, hands on hips, watching her. "Your turn," he said. Nia started slow, calculated. On the ropes, she slipped again, but this time, she caught herself mid-fall on the wall climb. She tied her shirt into a makeshift rope and used it for grip. On the final sprint, she roared, pushing harder than she ever had. She crossed the finish line gasping. Briggs looked at the stopwatch. 9 minutes, 15 seconds. Close. Damn close. Jace stepped forward. "Not good enough," he said. Nia opened her mouth to reply, but Briggs held up a hand. "She cut nearly 5 minutes from yesterday. That's improvement. That matters." Jace didn't care. He walked off with his gang. The others watched her now with something new, maybe even respect. That night, she found a note under her pillow. In bold, block letters. Wrong color, wrong place. Leave before you regret it. She didn't sleep much after that. The next few days were brutal. Every drill, every run, every climb, she gave everything. And every time she succeeded, the mocking got sharper. One guy accidentally tripped her during drills. Another poured water in her locker. She never responded. Not with words, only with performance. Her scores went up. Her stamina improved. Max kept helping her, quietly passing her clean socks, sharing protein bars. "You're winning?" he whispered one evening, even if they don't admit it. But one night, she returned to her locker and found her only spare shirt shredded. A photo of her mother torn in half and stuffed inside. That night, Naya stood outside the barracks under the stars, fists clenched. Rage burned in her chest. Not just for the shirt, not just for the photo, but for the years she had been told to smile and be quiet. She wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Tomorrow's drill was hand-to-hand combat. She knew what that meant. A chance to respond. The morning was thick with anticipation. Recruits stood in circles around the mat. Briggs called out names. When he called Jace versus Naya, the energy shifted. Even Briggs looked uneasy. You two, play fair, he warned. Jace smirked as he stepped onto the mat. Ready to go home, sweetheart? Nia didn't answer. The whistle blew. He came at her hard, using strength. She dodged, slid, used her speed. But he was fast too. An elbow caught her shoulder. A knee hit her thigh. The crowd murmured. Nia staggered, but stayed up. He rushed again, but this time she pivoted, grabbed his arm and flipped him flat on his back. Gasps. Real ones. Jace groaned, stunned. She stood over him, chest heaving. The crowd froze. Even Briggs looked stunned. But Naya didn't smile. She just walked off the mat without a word. That night, no one said anything to her. Not even Max. But the silence felt different, heavier, maybe even scared. Nia sat on her bunk, staring at her bruised hands. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was changing things, whether they liked it or not. But deep inside, she knew something had shifted, and the next battle wouldn't be physical. It would be deeper, meaner, and it was coming. She just didn't know how fast. Naya woke up before the horn, her body aching from the day before. The bruises on her arms were deep purple, and her back still throbbed from the slam she took in the fight against Jace. But inside her, something had shifted. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was pressure turning into power. She sat at the edge of her bunk, lacing her shoes slowly. The rest of the dorm was silent. Even Max didn't say good morning, but she could feel their eyes. Not mocking this time, just watching. And that meant something was changing. At breakfast, the air was still tense. Jace walked in with his usual gang, jaw clenched, ego bruised. A few of them nodded at him, but even his own crew didn't look him in the eye like before. No one brought up the fight. No one needed to. He sat across the mess hall from Naya, locking eyes with her. She didn't flinch. He stood suddenly and walked over. The room froze. You think you proved something, he said under his breath, voice low and dangerous. That was luck? A fluke? Nia didn't look up. Then challenge me again, she said quietly. Public. This time real rules. No mats, no time limit. The table next to her went silent. Jace stared at her, then walked away without another word. Briggs announced the next phase of training. Firearms and pressure response. It would be 5 straight days of drills under noise, stress, and simulated chaos. No room for errors. Anyone who breaks safety protocol is disqualified. Period, he said sternly. The first session took place in a dusty outdoor range, sun beating down, gear weighing heavy on their backs. Nia had never held a real firearm before. Her hands trembled on the first shot. It missed by 5 inches. She closed her eyes, focused. Then again, this one hit center left. Then another. She slowly adjusted, learning fast. JACE, of course, was flawless. His aim was precise, his reload smooth. He looked like he was born holding a rifle. When Nia passed him on the way to the reset station, he whispered, "Try not to shoot your own foot." She didn't respond. She had learned that silence made men like him louder, and louder men made more mistakes. During a break, Max leaned over. "You're improving fast," he said. "Faster than anyone I've seen. I think it's scaring them." Naya gave a tight smile. "Good. Let them feel it." The night drills were harder. Sirens, smoke, yelling, targets that popped up and disappeared. Jace kept trying to outpace everyone, but in his rush, he missed a key target and got penalized. Nia moved slower, calmer, hitting every mark. Afterward, Briggs pulled her aside. "You've got nerves. That's rare." She nodded, trying not to show how much those words meant. No one had ever told her that before. By the third day, Jace was spiraling. He barked at his team, snapped at Briggs. His hits were still accurate, but something was off. The others noticed it too. During lunch, one of his buddies even moved tables. Whispers spread. Jace's title as Alpha was cracking. That night, it finally snapped. During a silent walk back from the shooting range, someone's voice rang out. "Hey Jace, maybe you should take tips from Nia." The entire group stopped. Jace spun around. It was Malik, a wiry guy from Texas, known for his sarcasm. "What did you say?" Jace growled. Malik shrugged. "I mean, she's been climbing the ranks while you've been blowing gaskets." Jace lunged in 2 strides. He shoved Malik into the dirt. Briggs arrived in seconds, yelling, "Touch another recruit again, and you're gone." Jace stared at Malik, then stormed off. Later, that night, Nia found her locker open again. This time, her boots were missing. She searched quietly, said nothing, and borrowed a spare pair from storage. But when she opened her bunk drawer, she found something that made her freeze. A picture of a noose, drawn in black ink, with the words, "Not one of us," scrawled beneath it. Her hands trembled as she held it. Max saw it from across the room. "Who did that?" he asked. Nia didn't answer. Instead, she folded the paper and tucked it in her pocket. "This ends in the arena," she whispered, "not in the dark." The next day, Briggs gathered everyone before the training dome. "It's time for full combat scenarios. Two-tanta tactics. Each pair rotates, scoring based on teamwork, control, and takedown." Nia was paired with Max. Jace was with Malik. Briggs said it was to resolve tension. No one believed that. On the second round, Nia and Max faced Jace and Malik. The moment the bell rang, it turned ugly. Jace ignored the script. He rushed Nia, fists flying, using real force. She blocked, ducked, and countered, but he wasn't holding back. It wasn't training, it was a message. Max tried to step in, but Malik grabbed him, holding him back as if they'd planned it. Nia took a hard blow to the ribs, then another to her shoulder, but she didn't fall. She watched his rhythm, read his anger. Then, with a quick sidestep, she let his punch miss and used his own weight to flip him over her shoulder. He crashed to the floor. The dome went silent. Briggs ran in, furious. "What the hell was that?" he shouted. Jace groaned on the ground. Stunned, Malik looked away. "You're suspended for 3 days." Briggs told Jace, "No appeals." Jace opened his mouth to protest, then saw Briggs's face. He stayed quiet. That night Nia sat outside alone, her body aching. Max joined her, sitting quietly. "You humiliated him," he said, "in front of everyone." Nia stared up at the sky. "He wanted to break me. That was his mistake." Max nodded slowly. "They're starting to see you now, the real you." She glanced sideways. "That's what scares them." And it was true. The next day recruits actually clapped when she finished her drill. Not all, but enough. Even Malik gave her a nod. Things were shifting, but it wasn't over. On the third day of Jace's suspension, news spread that there would be an anonymous peer vote to decide who advanced early to the elite squad. Only 5 would be chosen. Nia's name was rising fast in whispers. Some said she was the most improved. Others said she was untouchable under pressure. Jace returned the day before the vote. His eyes were darker now. Not loud, just dangerous. He said nothing, but Nia could feel it coming. A final clash. One that wouldn't be on a mat or under rules. That night, a fire alarm went off at 2 a.m. Recruits scrambled out of the dorms. Smoke poured from the supply shed. Briggs arrived, yelling commands. But before the fire was even under control, someone shouted, "Nia's gear is missing." She ran to the storage shed, heart racing. Inside, her backup boots, vest, and gear bag were gone, burned only. Ashes remained. Briggs saw the mess. Who did this? No one answered. Nia didn't speak either. She just stared at the blackened pile. Then she turned around and walked out without a word. The next morning, she arrived on the field in borrowed gear again. Black tape held her vest together. Her boots didn't fit, but she stood tall. Briggs called out the 5 names. Advancing, Nia's name was third. Her heart pounded. Whispers rose. Jace didn't look surprised. He just stared at her like he had waited for this moment. As the group gathered to applaud, Briggs added, "Final trials begin tomorrow. One-on-one combat. Real environment. No referees." A few jaws dropped. Rules. Nia felt her stomach tighten. That night, someone slipped a note under her bunk. No name, just 4 words. "He's planning something dirty." She folded the paper and looked around. The lights flickered off, and in the dark, she heard it. A whisper, low and cruel. "Tomorrow ends it. You don't get up." Then, footsteps, retreating into the silence. The morning of the final combat trial was colder than usual. The sky hung low with heavy gray clouds, and a stiff wind cut through the base like a warning. Nia woke up before anyone else. She didn't touch the note again. She didn't need to. The whisper from the night before still rang in her ears. "You don't get up." She stood in front of the cracked mirror in the dorm bathroom and stared at herself. Her face was calmer than expected, but her stomach twisted with a mix of fear and something sharper. Not hate, not even anger. Focus. That was the word. Pure, dangerous focus. Briggs had made it clear. Today's final trials would be done one-on-one in the outer compound, isolated, obstacle-filled real terrain. One winner per pair, no second chances, no interference. It wasn't just about strength anymore. It was about tactics, pressure, and staying in control even when everything around you screamed chaos. Recruits gathered at dawn. The tension was heavy. No jokes, no shoving. Just quiet eyes and racing hearts. Nia saw Jace standing at the far end of the line. His eyes were locked on her, and for the first time, he didn't smirk. He just nodded once, slowly, like a hunter spotting his final prey. Briggs assigned the pairs. Some were surprised, others looked relieved. When he reached the last 2 names, his voice grew heavy. Nia Winters, Jace Dalton, Arena 3. A few gasps. Everyone knew this was it. Not just a fight, but a reckoning. Nia didn't flinch. She just adjusted the borrowed strap on her vest and walked forward. The arena was a stretch of abandoned field surrounded by broken vehicles, trenches, and smoke machines, simulating a low-visibility combat zone. Each pair would be dropped from separate entry points. No one watching, just cameras for review. A siren would start the match. There was no time limit. As the transport door slammed shut behind her, Nia's heartbeat slowed. Instead of speeding up, her hand checked her equipment. She had a fake rifle for tagging, a training knife, a flash charge, and a combat band she needed to protect. Jace would have the same, but he wouldn't play by the rules. She knew that now. The voice in her head whispered, "This time he'll try to finish it." The horn blared. Nia ducked low and moved through the smoke. Her eyes scanned for movement. She kept her breathing quiet and rhythmic. Every muscle in her body was coiled. 10 minutes passed. No sign of him. Then, suddenly, a bottle flew out of nowhere and exploded beside her knot. A a glass, sharp, illegal. She rolled behind cover, heart thudding. Her arm had a small cut, blood real. "So this is how you want it," she whispered to herself. She heard movement behind a burned-out jeep. She flanked left, staying low. Another sharp crash, a thrown metal piece this time. Jace was trying to unnerve her. He wasn't playing for points. He was playing to injure her badly enough to end her chances of ever advancing. She waited, then moved quick. Around the jeep, nothing, then bomb. He crashed into her from above, dropping from the roof of a nearby shack. They rolled across the dirt. His arm went around her neck. She elbowed his ribs hard. He hissed, tightening his grip. "This ends now," he spat. "You should have known your place." Nia slammed her heel into his shin and rolled free. She grabbed her knife and slashed upward just enough to tag him. It would have ended the match if rules mattered, but he didn't stop. He charged again, this time grabbing a piece of pipe. Nia dodged. He swung. It barely missed her face. She could feel the fury pouring out of him, not just because he hated losing, but because it was her. A black woman, strong, unbreakable, and nothing enraged him more than the fact that she wouldn't disappear like the others he'd broken. She kicked his knee and sent him off balance, but he recovered fast, swinging again. This time, it grazed. Her shoulder pain flashed. She dropped to a knee, rolled, and tackled him by the waist, slamming him into a mound of dirt. His breath whooshed out. She held the knife to his chest. "It's over," she said. "I win." But Jace's hand moved fast. From his belt, he pulled out a jagged metal shard. Not regulation, not allowed. Nia grabbed his wrist mid-swing. The force cut her palm, but she held tight. Her knee slammed into his chest. He choked. She twisted the shard from his hand and threw it aside. Then she stood, breath ragged. "This is the last time," she said, looking down at him. "You won't get another shot." She stepped back and tapped the band on her wrist, signaling completion. The siren blared. Match over. An hour later, Briggs reviewed the footage. His face was stone. The instructors watched silently. When Nia walked into the briefing room, Jace was already there, bandaged, scowling, silent. Briggs looked at them both. "This was not what we trained for," he said, "but it showed who each of you really are." He turned to Nia. "Kept control under a full assault. You followed the mission. You had every right to retaliate with force and you didn't. That's what leadership looks like." Then he turned to Jace. "You're discharged. Effective immediately." Jace stood, furious. "You think this is fair?" "She baited me. She knew what she was doing." Briggs didn't blink. "You broke protocol. You used banned objects. You attacked with intent to harm. You failed." 2 officers walked in. Jace looked at Nia, hate burning in his eyes. "This isn't over," he whispered as they pulled him out. Nia didn't look at him. She just turned to Briggs. "Do I still advance?" He studied her. "You do more than that. You lead the next phase." Word spread fast. Jace was gone. The alpha had fallen. The crowd who used to mock her now stood in quiet respect. Even the ones who never said her name before now looked her in the eye. Malik walked by later and muttered, "Didn't think you'd survive, but now I'm glad you did." Max found her in the training yard that evening. "You okay?" he asked. She held up her bandaged hand. "This, just a scratch." Max smiled. "He's scared of you now, and he should be." That night, a ceremony was held to honor the top recruits. Nia stood in front, hand over her chest, while the flag rose. The crowd clapped. For her, not out of guilt, not forced, real. She looked out and saw the instructors, the recruits, even the ones who used to laugh at her. They stood, not mocking, watching one step at a time. She had turned humiliation into power, fire into focus. And now, the spotlight was hers. But deep inside, she knew something wasn't over. The look in Jace's eyes when he was dragged out. The silence afterward. It meant something more. Something unfinished. That night, she found another note under her bunk. This one in red ink. "The game's not done. Watch your 6. Her hand froze. She looked around the room. Nothing but silence and shadows. But her gut tightened. Tomorrow was the next phase. And Jace might be gone, but he wasn't the only threat. The wind carried a strange quietness that morning. A silence that didn't belong in a place like this. The next phase of training had begun, a more elite level, reserved for only the best. Nia walked through the upgraded compound with careful steps. Gone were the dirty open fields and the cracked dorms. Here the paths were smoother, the buildings reinforced, the air heavier with unspoken expectations. 12 recruits had made it, out of the original 54, and she wasn't just one of them. She was the only black woman who had ever reached this phase at this training base. That fact followed her like a shadow, unspoken but always present. Some respected her now, some still stared too long, and some had simply gone quiet. But respect didn't mean safety, and silence didn't mean peace. She hadn't told anyone about the red ink note. It wasn't fear, it was instinct. Something told her that whoever wrote it wanted her to react, to panic, to show weakness. She wouldn't give them that, not now. The upgraded training focused less on brute strength and more on leadership, intelligence, decision-making, and chaos. They were put into mock war zones, tested under fake gunfire, unpredictable terrain, drone attacks, and psychological pressure. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about commanding others to survive. Naya was assigned Squad C, 3 other recruits under her. Max, who she trusted. Rafe, quiet but alert. And Dana, transfer from another camp, sharp-tongued and clearly uncomfortable taking orders from someone like Nia during their first strategy session. Dana cut her off mid-sentence. We don't need hand-holding. Just tell us what you expect. And get out of the way. Naya looked at her without blinking. You'll speak when I finish, not before. Dana's face flushed, but she didn't argue further. Max nodded slowly. Finally, he whispered. The next exercise was a heist rescue simulation. Squad C had to locate and extract a captured civilian while under drone surveillance and enemy fire. They were allowed one drone operator. Nia assigned Max to the controls. Rafe took left flank, Dana took sniper position. Nia would lead ground. The mission began at 0300 hours. They moved fast and silent through fake forest terrain, thick with fog. Nia gave hand signals. Max fed intel through a CUM device. Rafe spotted movement on infrared, 3 targets east, 15 meters. Nia gave the order. They spread, surrounded, neutralized with clean tags. Dana hesitated before taking her shot, but finally followed through. They reached the civilian, a dummy with attached voice. Kusan began extraction. That's when it happened. A sudden blackout on the drone feed. Max's screen went dark. Something's jamming us, he muttered. They didn't say anything about jammers. Nia's instincts flared. She scanned the trees. That's when a real flare exploded in the sky. Real, not part of the simulation. Then a second, panic rippled through her squad. Fall back, she shouted, but it was too late. From behind the fake rocks, 3 masked figures appeared. Not trainers, not actors. Their gear wasn't regulation. Nia stepped in front of the squad. This isn't part of the drill. We hold position. Dana, cover rear. Max, reboot your drone feed. Rafe, prepare for signal beacon drop. The figures didn't speak. They advanced slowly. One of them dropped a smoke grenade at their feet. Visibility vanished. Then a voice from the fog twisted through a speaker rang out. You think you won. You're still just a puppet in a uniform. Nia's blood turned cold. That voice, it wasn't Jace, but it belonged to someone who knew him. Maybe someone who supported what he tried to do. The smoke lifted slightly. Nia pushed forward, tackled one of the intruders, slammed them into the dirt. She pulled off the mask. A woman, a former recruit. Dismissed weeks ago for conduct. You should have stayed in your place, she hissed. You embarrassed him, now you pay. Nia didn't hesitate. She knocked her out cold. The others scattered when they saw her take one down. Base alarms rang seconds later. Instructors swarmed the zone. The mission was cut short. All squads were pulled back. Nia was taken in for questioning. So was her team. Dana was furious. This wasn't part of the training. They almost killed us. Max defended Nia. She kept us alive. She read it before any of us even understood what was happening. Rafe nodded. She didn't just lead us, she saved us. Nia sat in the commander's office for nearly 2 hours while they reviewed footage. When Briggs finally entered, he tossed a folder on the table. You know what this is? He asked. Nia shook her head. It's the personnel file of the girl you tackled. Dismissed for running an underground harassment ring tied to former recruit Jace Dalton. Looks like she didn't act alone. Nia leaned forward. So this wasn't just about me. Briggs shook his head. You're the symbol. But someone building something darker behind the scenes. And you just became a threat to that plan. He paused. I should be pulling you from active rotation, for safety. But if I do that, they win. So I'm promoting you instead. Nia blinked. Promoting? Briggs nodded. Squad leader of the entire Alpha rotation, starting now. You're going to lead them, every one of them, even those who hate you. Nia stood slowly. The room felt heavy. Her hand throbbed from the fight. Her chest still buzzed from adrenaline. Then give me full access, she said. Drone logs, patrol paths, entry records. If there's a network, I'll find it. Briggs smiled. I thought you might say that. That night, Nia walked into the new Alpha rotation dorm. Bigger, cleaner, more eyes on her. Max gave her a quiet nod from across the room. Dana stood up, surprised. They gave you Alpha. Nia didn't answer. She walked to the center, pulled a chair, and sat. Training resumes at 0500. Show up ready. Or don't show up at all. Rafe chuckled under his breath. Max whispered to him. She's not just rising. She's taking the whole system with her. Nia opened her locker to store her file and found something taped inside. Another note. This time in typed font. No handwriting, no red ink. Just one sentence. The next storm won't come in smoke. It'll come in fire. The fire alarm test woke them all at 0500 sharp. But Nia was already sitting on the edge of her bunk, boots laced, mind racing. The message from last night still echoed inside her chest like a silent countdown. The next storm won't come in smoke, it'll come in fire. She hadn't told anyone, not even Max, not Dana, not the commander. She was beginning to understand that this wasn't about proving she belonged. It was about breaking a system that had always told people like her to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible. And someone wanted to stop her before she got too far, but they were already too late. Outside the dorm, the air was sharp with early morning frost. Recruits gathered in formation, tension crawling in their eyes. Naya stood at the front. All Alpha rotation squads were lined up now, and for the first time, she wasn't just a participant, she was leading. The instructors handed her the new training schedule. It was brutal. Obstacle course, marksmanship challenge, endurance run, followed by simulated live combat drills, all in one day. A pressure test designed to reveal cracks. Briggs stood behind the glass window of the command tower, watching her every move. The obstacle course was first. 20-foot walls, mud pits, barbed wires, balance beams. Nia didn't give long speeches. She just said, "You're not racing each other, you're racing your weakness." Then she went first. She scaled the first wall like a shadow, didn't flinch in the mud, rolled under wire, and landed hard but steady. The others followed. Even those who used to mock her now followed, her with narrowed eyes, no longer laughing. Dana, still recovering from the shock of their ambush last week, kept her pace behind Nia. Max ran like a machine. Rafe used sharp bursts of movement. One recruit, Brandon, tall, loud, smug, tried to outpace her. He slipped on the high beam, landed face first in the mud. When he stood, bruised and embarrassed, Nia didn't look back. But the whole squad saw it. The silence was loud. The marksmanship challenge followed. Targets popped up from different angles. They wore motion sensors and shifted every 2.5 seconds. Nia's hands were steady, her eyes locked in. She scored 92%, second only to Max. Dana got 85%. Brandon, he missed 3 straight. The instructor made a note. He kicked the dirt in frustration. "It's rigged," he muttered. "Can't win when the one running the show's already decided the outcome." Nia walked past him and said nothing. She didn't have to. After lunch came the endurance run. 10 kilometers through uphill terrain, carrying weighted packs. No breaks, no shortcuts. Halfway through, Nia felt the burn in her legs. Her breath shortened, but she'd been here before, mentally, emotionally. She knew what it meant to run through pain. That was her whole life. By the final kilometer, she'd created a lead. But she heard something behind her, panting, heavy footsteps, and then a shout. Dana had tripped, her ankle caught between 2 stones. Nia stopped. The others hesitated. Rafe kept moving. Max slowed. Nia turned back, lifted Dana's arm, and slung it over her shoulder. "You finish," she said. Dana growled, "I don't need your pity." Nia looked her straight in the eye. "It's not pity, it's command." Together they crossed the finish, and the squad stared again. Not at her strength this time, but at her choice. Later that evening, in the main hall, all recruits gathered. For the combat drill simulation, it was meant to be a real-time strategy scenario. Squad leaders were handed sealed envelopes with instructions. The challenge: rescue a captured ally from enemy territory using stealth, planning, and 0 casualties. Time limit, 25 minutes. Nia gathered Max, Dana, and Rafe. The terrain was unfamiliar urban setup, burned buildings, tight alleys, hidden threats. Max scanned maps. Rafe identified enemy fire lines. Dana offered a sniper perch. Nia absorbed it all. "We go silent," she said. "No radios, hand signals only. No split routes. We move like one body." The team nodded. They moved out. 15 minutes in, they encountered their first trap, a minefield disguised as gravel. Rafe almost stepped forward, but Nia saw the pattern. "Hold," she whispered. She used a stick, mapped the lines, and led them through safely. They reached the extraction point. The Alliant instructor playing the role was guarded by 2 hostile recruits acting as enemies. Dana lined up the shot, non-lethal only, Nia reminded her. Dana exhaled, fired rubber rounds, and hit both targets cleanly. Max rushed to the ally. Rafe secured the zone. Just as they began extraction, a flare shot up from the western building. A real flare. Again, the instructors paused the simulation, but the western building burst into real flame. Not part of the exercise. Smoke poured. Someone screamed. Real panic erupted. Nia didn't wait. Rafe exit path. East stairwell. Max go medics. Dana cover the door. She ran inside the building. Black smoke clouded her sight. Heat tore at her lungs, but she heard coughing. A recruit had gotten stuck inside during the simulation reset. Nia crawled, felt along the walls, found him under collapsed debris. She dragged him out just as emergency sirens wailed. The fire was contained, but the message wasn't. That night, the base was locked down. Instructors questioned everyone. Cameras were reviewed. The fire was intentional. Set using stolen materials. No suspects confirmed. But everyone was talking. Someone was escalating things, and Nia was in the center of it all. That evening, while the others slept, she sat alone on the barracks steps. Dana walked out quietly. "Why'd you come back?" "For me today?" Nia didn't look up. "Because leadership isn't just about the mission. It's about the people." Dana hesitated. I wasn't ready to follow you before, but I am now. You saved my life. And I don't care what color your skin is. I just care what kind of leader you are. Nia nodded, her voice quiet. Then help me watch. Someone's using this training as a cover. They're not done. Dana sat beside her. We'll watch together. Just before lights out, Nia received a file slipped under her door. It was a USB drive and a folded paper. On it were 3 words. Don't trust Briggs. Her breath caught. She looked toward the command tower window, but the lights were off. She plugged the drive into her secured tablet. Files opened. Camera feeds, instructor schedules, a private conversation recording. One voice stood out. It was Briggs, his voice cold, calculating. We'll let her rise. Just enough. Then we pull the floor out. Make an example. The system survives by reminding everyone who built it. Nia's heart slammed against her ribs. The threat wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the tower, inside the command. And now she knew. Nia didn't sleep that night. She sat still in the corner of her bunk with her back against the wall, eyes flickering between the glowing screen of the tablet and the shadows crawling under the door. The file from the USB haunted her. Audio of Briggs plotting to sabotage her progress, to let her rise and pull the floor out, echoed in her ears like a slow, tightening noose. She'd faced bullies, backstabbers, racists, even fake allies, but this was different. This was someone at the top, someone in control, and someone who had built a system that punished anyone trying to change it. She wanted to scream, but she had learned to keep her anger cold, sharp, silent, like a blade waiting for the right moment. By 0500, the lights flickered on. Another training day, another test. But this time, Nia knew it wasn't just about strength or skills. It was about truth, survival, exposure. She slipped the USB back into her boot and joined the other recruits outside. A heavy fog rolled over the field as if the sky itself wanted to hide what was coming. Dana walked beside her quietly. Rafe stood behind. Max looked over and gave her a firm nod. She gave one back, tight, almost invisible. They were called into the arena, an open field circled with stands. This wasn't a usual drill. The commander announced a new evaluation, one-on-one combat trials. Each recruit would face another randomly selected opponent, while the others observed. The goal? Submission, not injury. But everyone knew the unspoken rule. If you humiliated your opponent, you rose. If you got humiliated, your name vanished from the shortlist, and Nia knew exactly what Briggs was planning. He was going to break her publicly, then smile as she disappeared into the footnotes. First pair, Brandon versus Max. It was brutal. Brandon went in with fists swinging, but Max was faster, more controlled. He dropped Brandon in less than 2 minutes using a clean leg sweep and shoulder pin. Brandon stood up, bleeding from the lip, humiliated. Next up, Rafe versus another senior. Recruit Dana versus a lean, sharp-eyed sprinter. Match after match went by. Sweat poured, cheeks bruised. The audience cheered for every Anya. Then Nia's name was called. Her opponent stepped forward. Leon Harper, Alpha Squad's loudest, most arrogant, most physically dominant recruit. 6'4", 240 pounds. All muscle, all ego. And worst of all, the poster boy of everything the system wanted to protect. He smirked as he stepped into the circle. Finally, he said, stretching his neck, time to shut this little experiment down. The crowd didn't cheer. They leaned in. They wanted to see it. The black woman who had risen too far too fast. The one who made them all uncomfortable. Nia stepped into the circle, her face unreadable. Inside, her heart beat steady. She didn't need them to believe. She just needed them to see. The whistle blew. Leon charged, first fast, but predictable. She sidestepped, ducked, and jabbed his ribs. A warning, he laughed. You're gonna have to hit harder than that. He lunged again, this time catching her arm. He tried to throw her over his shoulder, but Nia twisted midair, landed on her feet, and kicked behind his knee. He stumbled, the crowd gasped, but he was back up fast, rage on his face. 3 more clashes. He landed a blow to her shoulder. She countered with a heel strike to his gut. He tried to pin her. She wriggled free. It was chess with fists. Precision, focus, control. Then he said, under his breath, so only she could hear, go back to cleaning floors, girl. This place ain't for you. Something changed in Nia's eyes. She dropped low, swept his legs, and as he fell, she locked his arm, twisted behind his back, and pinned him hard against the mat. The referee blinked. Leon shouted in pain. She didn't loosen. Submit, she said coldly. He growled. She tightened. Submit, she said louder. He finally slapped the mat. I give up. Silence, then a few claps, then more. Then the whole group stood in stunned awe. Even Brandon, even those who mocked her on day 1, were staring. Nia stood, walked away. No celebration, no words, just power and silence. But up in the command tower, Briggs was watching. His eyes narrowed. His plan had failed, publicly, visibly, and now she had the crowd. That made her dangerous. Later that day she was summoned to the commander's office. She expected Briggs. Instead, a woman stood at the desk. Major Eliza Haynes. She wore no smile. Her uniform crisp, her presence commanding. I saw the footage, Haynes said. What you did out there, that wasn't luck. That was strategy, bravery, discipline. Nia didn't speak. Haynes continued. We don't usually consider first-timers for early leadership trials, but I'm overriding that. You'll be given a provisional command over a unit during next week's advanced simulation. Nia's mouth opened slightly. She didn't expect that. Thank you, ma'am, she said. There's more, Haynes said. We've found something troubling. Security logs show unauthorized entries into storage buildings, files tampered, emergency supplies moved, but every trail leads to a dead end. Someone is erasing themselves. Nia stayed still. This was connected. She could feel it. Haynes continued. You were recently given a USB, we know. The surveillance caught it. We didn't interfere because we wanted to see what you'd do. You didn't report it. Nia took a slow breath. I wanted to be sure before I accused someone. Haynes leaned forward. Then be sure now. Tell me who Briggs is working with. But Nia said nothing. Not yet. Something was off. That night, Max approached her in the mess hall. We need to talk, he said privately. They met by the training yard. Max looked around before speaking. I found something. Leon's medical record was doctored after the match. They tried to make it look like you dislocated his shoulder on purpose. If that file leaks, they'll use it to disqualify you for violent conduct. Nia's hands clenched. Briggs, Max nodded. And he's not working alone. The system protects itself. Remember, Rafe joined them. So did Dana. Slowly, the team formed a circle. We all saw what happened today, Dana said. We've seen it since day one. They're scared of her, not because she's weak, but because she's stronger than their lies. We expose them, Max said. Together. Nia nodded. Not, yet we don't just want to fight back. We want to change this place. We need proof. Real, undeniable proof. Max looked at her. Then, what's the plan? Nia turned to the building lights in the distance. We break into the command servers. We pull everything. The files, the emails, the recorded conversations. We find the route. That's insane, Rafe said. That's treason. No, Nia said. That's justice. Nia stood at the edge of the training yard that night, her arms crossed as the wind pulled at the hem of her jacket. Her mind wasn't on tomorrow's drills. It was on the mission, the one they were about to start. The one that could either expose the corrupt system or destroy her forever. She looked around the shadows, making sure no one followed. When she stepped inside the equipment shed where Max, Dana, and Rafe waited, the air felt heavier than usual. Max had drawn a crude map of the base on the dusty floor, using chalk and a bent stick. This is where the command servers are, he said, pointing to a building marked with a star. Level 3, restricted, guarded 24/7. 2 entry points, one through the admin hall, the other through the old ventilation shaft on the west side. Nia studied it quietly. The ventilation shaft, she said. That's our way in. Rafe folded his arms. You sure about this? If we're caught, this won't be a warning letter. This'll be prison. Dishonorable discharge. Maybe worse. I didn't come here to survive quietly, Nia replied, her voice calm. I came here to finish what I started. Dana nodded. Then we're with you, no matter what. They planned for hours who would enter, who would be lookout, how long they had between patrol cycles. Max had an old security badge he'd swiped during cleaning duty. Rafe had memorized a guard's schedule. Dana would disable the outer cameras, with a software loop she secretly coded on a spare training tablet. Midnight came too slowly. They moved in silence. Black clothes, no lights, no words, just hand signals. Dana's loop worked. The cameras blinked, then froze. Rafe took position near the admin hall. Max lifted the rusted grate of the vent shaft, and Nia crawled in first. The space was narrow, and cold metal scraped her back as she moved through. Her breath was shallow, but her mind was steel. Every inch forward brought her closer to the truth. After 15 long minutes, they reached the inside of the server room. Max popped the inner grate quietly and helped Nia down. The room was lined with humming machines, blinking lights, and thick cords. Max went to work, plugging in a small device that started copying server data to an external drive. 2 minutes, he whispered. Nia walked along the rows, scanning the labels. One server had a special lock on it. What's that one? She asked. Max frowned. That's deeper clearance than I've ever seen. Nia pulled the lock. It didn't budge. She turned to Max. Override it. Max hesitated. When I do that, the system could trigger an alert. We've come this far, she said. He pulled out a slim silver tool and began working. The lock clicked open. The server roared louder. Files opened, video logs, internal messages, erased evaluations, and then a folder titled Oasis Candidate Suppression Protocol. Nia opened it. What she saw made her knees shake. Videos of training accidents that weren't accidents. Audio of officials discussing how to sabotage recruits of color who rose too quickly. A list of names. Hers was on it. So was Dana's. So was a woman named Lt. Kiara Thomas, the only black woman ever to make it to final command phase. The folder ended with a report that read, Thomas eliminated from program under Section 9A. Mental instability cited. No appeal. Dana's voice came through the comm. You've got 30 seconds. Guards are shifting. Max grabbed the drives. They re-entered the vent. Slower this time. Tired, Nia was last. As she crawled out the outer grate, her boot got stuck. Max reached a help hand. That's when the alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed. Run. Rafe yelled. They bolted. Into the trees behind the barracks, breath ragged, hearts thudding. Guards swarmed the area, shouting orders. Dogs barked. Flashlights tore through the darkness. Nia stumbled, her lungs on fire. Max turned and shoved the drive into her hand. Split up, he yelled. Hide it. She didn't want to leave, but she knew if she was caught, the truth died with her. She darted behind the motor pool, climbed under a parked truck, and waited. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She held the drive close to her chest like a heartbeat. Footsteps approached. A light swept over the ground. Voices a moment passed. Then another. Then, silence. She waited an hour before crawling out. By dawn, the camp was in chaos. Guards searched every locker, every bunk, every field. No one knew who had done it. No one except for recruits who now shared a secret that could blow the entire program apart. Briggs called a meeting. All recruits were lined up on the main field. His face was pale with rage. Someone has attempted a breach of federal systems. This is no longer a training concern. It's a national security violation. If you are caught hiding information or protecting anyone involved, you will be charged. He walked down the line slowly, eyes cold. We will find out who did this. When he reached Nia, he paused. Their eyes locked. Especially you, he said softly. That night, Max didn't return to the bunks. Neither did Rafe. Dana was questioned for hours. When she returned, her eyes were red, and she wouldn't speak. Nia lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her fingers clutched the drive under her pillow. They couldn't wait anymore. Briggs was going to take them. Down one by one, she crept out. Down the hall, past the sleeping guards, into the old data center used only for offline archives. She powered the old terminal. Plugged in the drive, her fingers typed quickly. She was going to upload it to the cadet network. Let the truth reach every corner of the camp. Before they could silence her. But as the files began to transfer, the screen flickered, then turned black. A new screen appeared. Transfer terminated. Access denied. She froze. The door behind her clicked. Briggs stepped in slowly, followed by 2 military police. Told you, he said calmly. She'd crack eventually. Nia stood, her fists clenched. You can't stop the truth, he smiled. I already did. That drive, traced, the files, encrypted. You played right into our hands. We needed to flush the weak ones out, and you did the work for us. You're lying. He stepped forward. You're done, Cadet Carter. She looked around. No exit, no weapons, only herself. Then Briggs whispered something she hadn't expected. You're just like Kiara, brave, smart, but stupid enough to think this place was meant for you. That name? Nia's voice shook. She didn't go unstable. You framed her? Prove it, he said, turning his back. That moment, something inside her snapped. Nia lunged, not to hurt but to grab the drive. She slammed it into her chest. You'll have to rip it from me, she said, backing into the wall. The guards raised their taser, but before they could move, an explosion of lights and sirens went off outside. A voice boomed through the PA system. This is Commander Haynes. All systems are now under lockdown. Unauthorized suppression protocols have been discovered. All commanding officers are ordered to report to Central Review. Briggs froze. The door burst open again. Max stumbled in, bleeding from his lip but holding another drive. Told you we made copies, he said, spitting blood. You're not the only one who plays dirty. Briggs lunged, but the guards turned, pointed tasers at him now. Nia stepped forward slowly, her voice steady. The system is broken, but now, everyone will know. And as Briggs was dragged out screaming, and Commander Haynes herself walked in to take her statement, Nia looked out the cracked window. The sky was beginning to lighten. For the first time, the horizon looked clear. Nia sat in the commander's office, her back straight but her hands trembling in her lap. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of the air conditioner. Commander Haynes sat across from her, stone-faced. The drive Max had recovered, resting between them like a ticking bomb. You understand the weight of what you've done. Cadet Carter, Haynes said. Nia nodded, though her throat was tight. I didn't do it to break the rules, she said. I did it to stop something much worse. Haynes didn't speak for a long time. She reached for the drive, plugged it into her encrypted system, and began scrolling through the files. The room grew colder by the second. When she stopped, her face changed stiff, almost pained. I served with Lieutenant Kiara Thomas, she said finally. She was one of the best officers I'd ever trained. Her removal never made sense to me. Nia swallowed hard. They erased her, and they tried to erase me. And you exposed them, Haynes said. You, and a few brave idiots who followed you. Just then, the door opened, and Max, Dana, and Rafe stepped in, escorted by military police, but this time, the guards saluted them. Nia's eyes widened. Max looked battered, his lips swollen, but he smiled crookedly. Dana was pale but unbroken. Rafe had a split eyebrow, but his chest was still puffed with fire. We told the truth, Max said. Now what? Commander Haynes looked at all of them, then turned her chair slightly. Now we clean house. By morning, officials were suspended. Briggs was escorted out in handcuffs, his screams echoing across the yard. Recruits gathered outside the admin building, murmuring in disbelief as the man who once strutted like a god was reduced to nothing but another criminal under guard. But victory didn't come without pain. The academy was under federal investigation, training halted, drills stopped, recruits were questioned one by one, trust was shattered. The place that once taught discipline and strength now felt hollow. The recruits who once mocked Naya now looked away when she passed, their pride shattered by the truth. Yet not everyone was silent. One afternoon, as Naya walked back from her debriefing, a group of first-year recruits stood waiting. One of them, a girl with tightly braided hair, in a nervous voice stepped forward. I just wanted to say, thank you, she whispered, for not giving up. Nia didn't respond with words. She simply nodded and kept walking. But inside, something broke open, a quiet crack of healing. That evening, the remaining recruits were called to the main hall. Commander Haynes stood at the front, flanked by internal investigators and high-ranking officers. A giant screen displayed images of the files recovered, names of those suppressed, and policies now under review. This institution must change, Haynes said, not just on the surface. Deep down, from the bones outward, we failed you. But those who stood up, those who risked everything to speak the truth, those are the ones who will lead us forward. Her eyes landed on Naya, then on Max, Dana, and Rafe. The council has ruled, she continued. You four are not only cleared of all charges, you're being promoted to leadership phase, effective immediately. A gasp rippled through the ROOMNIA blinked. Her legs felt weak. Max grinned. Dana's hands flew to her mouth. Rafe exhaled a low damn under his breath. They had done it. Against everything, they were still standing. The celebration was quiet but real. That night in the barracks, recruits brought over trays of food, clapped Naya on the back, even offered apologies. The tide had shifted, but Nia didn't let herself get comfortable. She knew the war wasn't over, it had just gone underground. One moment, in the silence, Dana pulled her aside. There's something I haven't told you, she said, her voice low. I found something in the files. It's hidden, under Kiara Thomas's folder. It's encrypted. Nia leaned closer. What kind of file? Coordinates. Dana whispered off. Space rural sector. Same location where Briggs used to take high-risk candidates for private training. Nia's heart dropped. You think Kiara is still alive? I think, Dana said. We don't know everything yet. That night, they gathered around a map. The coordinates pointed to a facility deep in the woods, listed as decommissioned training site. Rafe was the first to speak. We go there, all of us. Max looked doubtful. It could be a trap, or it could be the final piece, Nia said, and I'm not leaving anything unfinished. They made a plan. No official channels this time. They couldn't trust everyone, not yet. The academy was still cleaning up. The deeper rot could still be out there, hiding behind new names and new uniforms. 2 nights later, they stole a utility jeep and left the base under cover of darkness. The road to the coordinates was rough, broken asphalt, fallen branches, signs shot full of holes. As they got closer, Nia felt the silence grow thicker. It was too quiet. Not even birds. The facility appeared through the trees like a ghost. A squat concrete structure with faded lettering. Section 9 training, complex authorized personnel only. They parked in the shadows and crept toward the gate. No guards, no lights. Max picked the lock with a knife. Inside, the halls were lined with dust and darkness. Old files, busted lockers, cracked mirrors. Then they heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. They ducked behind a wall. Nia peeked around the corner and froze. It was her. LT Kiara Thomas. Older now, worn, but very much alive. She walked with a limp, holding a flashlight. Her eyes were sharp, and in her other hand, a pistol. Come out, she called. I heard your engine 2 miles out. You're not stealthy. Nia stepped out slowly. We're not enemies. Kiara's eyes locked on hers. And who are you? I'm Nia Carter, she said. You don't know me, but I know who you are. I know what they did to you. A pause. Then Kiara lowered the gun. You came to finish the story, she said quietly. Nia nodded. And maybe to write the ending together. They sat in the old control room, the others joining in silence. Kiara told them everything, how she was framed, how she refused to play along, how they faked her breakdown and reassigned her here. Under the label of security risk, she had stayed hidden, gathering data, waiting for someone to rise. I watched you, she told Nia, heard the rumors. I knew when you cracked the Briggs case, the tide had turned. You're the last piece, Max said. Your testimony could take down the whole corrupt chain. Kiara smiled, and now I finally have someone who'll listen. Outside, the night deepened. Nia looked round at the faces beside her friends who had become family, truth-seekers who refused to bend. They weren't just recruits anymore, they were a force. But just as peace settled over them, a gunshot rang out outside. They all jumped, then came another. Dana peeked through the cracked window. Multiple vehicles. No plates, armed men. Nia's blood turned to ice. They found us, Kiara stood. Then it's time we fight back. The room turned electric with tension. Nia grabbed an old training rifle from the rack. Max secured the doors. Dana activated the security cameras. Rafe pulled the jeep closer to the building in case they had to make a run. Outside, the shadows moved. Inside, the truth refused to be buried again, and as bullets shattered the first window, and the facility shook under incoming fire, Nia crouched. Behind the console, heart pounding, eyes focused. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was defending every voice that had been silenced. The first bullet shattered the top window pane, spraying glass across the dusty control room floor. Nia hit the ground, dragging Dana with her. Max ducked behind an overturned desk while Rafe yanked open a locker door and used it as a makeshift shield. LT Kiara Thomas stood tall despite her limp, watching the shadows outside with eyes sharpened by years of hiding and surviving. "They're not just here to scare us," she said coldly. "They're here to erase us." "How many?" Max shouted, peeking through the cracked window. "3 vehicles. Maybe 8 to 10 men," Dana replied, checking the camera feed. "Heavily armed. Moving like they've done this before." Rafe cursed under his breath. "Merc's not official military. That means someone hired them to finish the job Briggs couldn't." Nia's hands trembled as she loaded the old training rifle, but her voice was steady. "Then we give them a fight they weren't expecting." They moved quickly, securing doors, blocking entry points with furniture and filing cabinets, reinforcing the weak walls of the old facility. Kiara knew the building better than anyone. She led them through narrow back corridors, dusty supply rooms, hidden weapons closets left untouched for years. "Got 2 gas canisters," Max called from a supply room. "Smoke or stun?" "Both," Kiara replied. "We draw them into the kill zone, then block exits." "They have real rifles," Rafe said grimly. "We've got training gear, and luck." "Luck's all I've ever had," Nia muttered, "and it got me this far." The ground shook as another shot cracked into the wall, closer this time. The attackers had found the side entrance. "They're breaching," Dana said, pointing to the screen. "We've got 30 seconds, maybe less." Nia's heartbeat was thunder. "Positions. Don't let them divide us." The first merc pushed through the side door, weapon raised, eyes scanning. What he didn't see was Max above him on the scaffolding. One dropkick later, the man crashed to the floor, unconscious. 2 more followed, yelling. Rafe flanked them, using the old locker as a shield, knocking one flat and wrestling the other's rifle away, before jamming a knee into his stomach. Smoke filled the hallway. Dana tossed the second canister, obscuring their vision. In the chaos, Nia moved through the haze like a ghost. Her instincts kicked in: dodge, strike, evade. A merc lunged at her. She ducked low, swung her rifle stock into his knee, then used his own momentum to flip him into the wall. "They're retreating," Max shouted. "No." Regrouping, Kiara corrected, breathless. "They'll flank next." And she was right. The sound of boots thundered around the back corridor. The team ran to intercept it this time. One merc had gotten behind Dana. He grabbed her, pinned her to the wall, gun to her temple. "No one moved," he snarled. Everyone froze. Nia's chest caved inward. Time slowed. "Drop it," he barked, "or I'll paint the walls with her." Dana rammed her elbow into his gut and dropped to the floor just as Nia fired. The bullet hit the merc in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Dana scrambled away, gasping. Nia rushed to her, pulled her into cover. "You okay?" Dana nodded. "Shaken. Yeah, you." "Not yet." Then came silence. The gunfire stopped. No movement, no voices. Just the eerie stillness that settles before something worse. Nia looked around. Why'd they stop? Max checked the screens. "All vehicles are gone. No one outside." Rafe frowned. "That makes no sense. They had us cornered." A moment later, a slow knock echoed at the front door. Everyone tensed. Kiara raised her weapon and stepped forward. "Stay back." Another knock. 3 taps. Then silence. Nia took a breath and moved beside Kiara. "Let me open it." She cracked the door an inch and peered outside. One man stood there, gray beard, civilian clothes, hands raised. "I'm not with them," he said calmly. "I'm here to help you." Nia didn't move. "Who are you?" "My name is Micah Thomas," he said. "Kiara is my sister." Kiara's breath hitched. "You're supposed to be dead." Micah smiled sadly. "They told me the same about you." The others exchanged glances. Slowly, they let him in. Micah explained everything. After Kiara was framed and vanished, Micah had started investigating. He had military contacts, worked in classified operations. He'd gone dark, looking for traces of his sister. Years passed, dead ends. Then, 2 days ago, he caught word of the Briggs scandal. The files, the names, the academy. And Nia Carter. "I knew," he said, "you'd be the one to finally pull her out of the shadows." "How did you find us?" Dana asked. "Your coordinates weren't as secret as you thought," Micah said. "But I got here before the second wave." "Second wave?" Max asked sharply. "They sent amateurs first, to flush you out. The real team is en route now. Kill squad. No questions. No survivors." Rafe stood. "Then, we've got what minutes?" Micah nodded. "Less maybe. We need to disappear." Kiara looked at Nia. "We can't run now. Not after coming this far." Nia hesitated. If we die here, the story dies too. But if we live, Dana said, we finish it. They made a choice. Leave the building, take the drives. The data, the evidence, the testimony. Micah had a van hidden half a mile into the forest. Low-tech off-grid, perfect for disappearing. They loaded everything. Nia paused before entering. This place, she said softly, was supposed to bury the truth. And instead, Kiara whispered, it raised it from the dead. They drove all night, avoiding highways, sticking to dirt roads and shadows. Sleep came in minutes, then vanished again. Fear and adrenaline ran on a loop. Micah led them to a cabin old but wired with generators, jammers, and portable satellite links. Here, they uploaded the files to whistleblower networks. Sent every detail to federal watchdogs. Published statements, names, times, evidence. Bite on. The nation had seen the story. Military corruption, false accusations, the suppression of Kiara Thomas, the attempted erasure of Nia Carter, proof of blackmail, secret detention sites, and targeted racism inside elite training pipelines. Social media exploded. News anchors scrambled. Interviews flooded. The academy went into lockdown. High-level resignations followed, within hours. But it wasn't over. The kill team still hunted them. 2 days later, the cabin was found. They barely escaped. Rafe was injured. A bullet grazed his side. They had to carry him to the next vehicle, an old pickup hidden by Micah. From that point on, they never stayed in one place more than 12 hours. And yet, even in the chaos, hope ignited. Other voices began speaking out. Former cadets, silenced trainers, whistleblowers who had stayed quiet for years. Nia became the face of a movement she never asked for but never backed away from either. Kiara testified in front of Congress by video. Still in hiding. Max and Dana helped establish a secure task force of recruits and soldiers tired of the games. Rafe recovered. But the scar remained a mark of a battle he'd never forget. And Nia trained harder than ever, because now, it wasn't just about proving herself, it was about clearing a path for everyone who came next. But as the movement grew, so did the danger. Late one night, weeks later, they received a message on their encrypted server. A video. No sender. Just an image. A man, tied to a chair, bloody, bruised. Behind him, a voice. You thought it was over. The voice said, you're wrong. You poked a beast that doesn't sleep. And now, the camera panned. Nia's face strained. It was Micah. We take everything from you. The screen went black. Silence fell like a stone. Nia's fists clenched. Kia's eyes burned with fire. They want a war, Nia said, voice shaking. Let's give them one. The cabin had gone silent. The video of Micah tied and bloodied still lingered in Nia's mind like a knife pressed against her chest. No one spoke for a long time. Kiara stood near the window, unmoving, hands clenched tight. Rafe sat slumped on a crate, still weak from his wound, but the look in his eyes had changed. Max paced the wooden floor, whispering curses under his breath, while Dana stared at the screen, fists trembling. He was our only backup. Max finally muttered. No, Nia said quietly, her voice raw but certain. He was our spark. We're the fire now. Dana looked up. But we don't know where they've taken him. We don't even know if he's alive. Kiara cut in sharply, her voice like steel. They want us to watch him suffer. That means they're expecting us to come. They're expecting it, Rafe echoed. And still we're going. Nia turned to him. I'm not letting him die for helping me. For helping us, I owe him. We all do. Max kicked the crate. We don't even have a location. No GPS tag. No audio. Nothing. Dana's eyes darted to the laptop. Maybe we do. They all turned. I noticed something, she said. In the reflection behind Micah there was a ceiling fan. The blades were rusted, uneven, and the angle of light, it looked like sunset through vertical bars. Prison? Rafe guessed. No. Dana shook her head. Too clean for prison. More like a bunker, maybe an old military safe house. That fan design? It's standard in southwestern desert facilities. New Mexico? Arizona? Possibly Nevada? Kiara stepped forward. Micah used to work deep intelligence. If they took him, they'd hide him far from media, far from allies. Somewhere dark off-grid, somewhere familiar. Let's start there, Nia said. We find him, we burn their shadow system to the ground. Over the next 2 days, the team split up. Max hacked into old satellite databases, looking for utility spikes in abandoned bases. Dana traced the vehicle seen in the earlier footage, a military-grade SUV. With partial serials, Rafe, still limping, handled weapons prep, while Kiara reached out to her last remaining contact, an old pilot named Torres, who owed her his life. Torres came through. Found movement near Aragon Canyon, he said via encrypted call. Old surveillance center buried under rock, decommissioned a decade ago, but I saw cargo deliveries last week. No official logs. Coordinates, Kiara asked. Sending now. They loaded up. By nightfall they were speeding down dusty roads. In a blacked-out van, headlights off, hearts pounding. Every mile deeper into the canyon felt like a dive into the mouth of something ancient, buried, and angry. The base was nearly invisible from a distance. No towers, no lights. Just a slanted cliff wall with a narrow metal door cut into the stone. Guarded by cameras and 2 armed mercs, they parked a quarter-mile away and approached on foot, crawling through brush and boulders. Rafe whispered. Distraction, Kiara said. Max and I draw them left. You and Dana take the wall. Neo, you go in. What? Nia hissed. Alone, they'll expect me. Maybe even Rafe. But not you. Not the recruit they underestimated. Nia looked into her eyes. You sure? Kiara nodded. You ready? The team split silently. Max tossed a rock into the brush on the left, then another. The guards tensed, raising their weapons. Max sprinted from the shadows, shouting, Hey, over here. The guards gave chase. Nia bolted to the door, Dana at her side. Dana pulled out a small magnetic scanner and placed it on the lock. It buzzed softly, blinked green. 3 minutes, Dana whispered. Then they'll know we're in. Nia nodded, heart racing, and stepped inside. The hallway smelled like mold and metal. Dim red lights blinked overhead. Cameras hung at every turn. She ducked into the shadows, moved swiftly, avoiding beams, creeping along the wall. Then, she heard a faint cough, a muffled groan, down a narrow corridor. Behind a reinforced door, Micah.Nia pressed her ear to the steel. Micah, she whispered, no reply, but then another groan. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the small explosive Dana had given her. Wasn't deadly, just enough to blow hinges. She stuck it to the base of the door, then ducked back and covered her ears. Boom. The door shuddered, then fell. She rushed in. Micah was slumped in the chair, barely conscious. His face was swollen, lips cracked. Blood stained his shirt. Chains bound his arms to the frame. Nia, he croaked. I'm here, she whispered. I'm getting you out. She cut the chains with a bolt cutter and caught him as he collapsed into her arms. Come on, we've got to move. But then dash alarms, screaming red lights, footsteps. The facility was waking. She pulled Micah over her shoulder and half-dragged, half-carried him through the hallway. Just as she turned the final corner for guards blocked the path, Nia froze. Micah sagged in her arms. One of the guards stepped forward, a cruel grin on his face. Thought you could sneak in and take him? Cute. He raised his rifle, then erupted behind them. The guards turned too late. Kiara and Rafe stormed in, weapons blazing. 2 mercs dropped. The other 2 ran. Go, Kiara shouted. They ran. Back through the tunnels, smoke filling the air. Outside, Max had the van ready. Engine running, they piled in, tires screeching as they took off. From the rear window, Nia watched the base shrink behind them. Got him, she whispered. But they weren't safe. Micah was dying. Dana ripped open a medkit and worked furiously, stabilizing him. Internal bleeding, she muttered. Punctured lung. If we don't find a hospital, they'll arrest him, Max said. They'll arrest all of us. Then we find a ghost doctor, Kiara said. They did. A rebel medic named Lena who owed Rafe a favor once in Cairo. She patched Micah up in a barn. No questions asked. But Micah didn't wake up. Hours passed, then a day, then 2. Nia stayed beside him, barely sleeping. On the 3rd night, as rain fell softly on the tin roof, Micah stirred. His eyes opened. Weakly, he smiled. You came for me, Nia. Took his hand. I told you I would. He squeezed her fingers. Then finish this, he whispered. We're close, she said. People are rising, speaking up. You lit the match. Micah coughed, grimaced. Not just me. She sat with him for a long time, then stepped outside. Kiara waited under a tree, arms crossed. We're not safe yet. Kiara said. No, Nia replied. But now they're the ones afraid. That night a new video went viral. Nia Carter, standing before the wreckage of the old facility, told her story, unedited, unfiltered. I was mocked, beaten, ignored. They tried to erase me, but I didn't break. I became stronger. And now, I'm not alone. Behind her stood Kiara, Rafe, Dana, Max, and thousands across the nation were watching. But just as her message spread, another warning came. A hacker group sent an alert. A counterstrike was being planned. Not just to silence Nia, but to destroy every record, every testimony. They're going to flood the networks, Dana said. Fake stories, false narratives, make it look like we're liars. Max slammed the table. We can't stop that. Much misinformation alone. We don't need to, Kiara said. She turned to Nia. You need to face them. Live. No script, no edits. Nia's heart thudded. Go back to the academy. Go back to where it began. Tell the truth right there. On camera, with the world watching. Max shook his head. That's suicide. No, Nia said softly. That's justice. And so she decided, in 1 week she would return to the place where they mocked her, and this time, she wouldn't leave in shame. She would make them listen. The air outside the academy gates was cold, sharper than Nia remembered. She stood still in the dark, her fingers closed tightly around the strap of her old duffel bag. The concrete beneath her boots vibrated slightly from nearby helicopters. Drones buzzed overhead, their red lights blinking like silent warnings. Inside the campus, the media had already arrived. News vans, satellite dishes, live stream crews, all clustered behind yellow barricades. Nia could hear them shouting her name. From behind the fence, she didn't flinch. This was the moment she had feared and prepared for. Rafe stood at her left, his arm still in a sling. Kiara was on her right, dressed in full uniform. Dana and Max were monitoring the digital feeds from a black SUV nearby, coordinating with over a dozen activist channels who'd agreed to stream Naya's appearance without filters or edits. "You sure about this?" Kiara asked, her eyes locked on the security cameras above. Nia nodded slowly. "I was afraid before. Not anymore, not after Micah, not after everything they did." Rafe gave her a proud, crooked smile. "Then let's make remember your name." The three stepped through the main gate as the sun broke over the horizon, bathing the campus in orange light. A slow hush fell over the crowd. Even the camera crews went still as Naya walked up the marble steps toward the same hall where her journey began. The hall where she was once laughed at, jeered, and dismissed. A guard stopped them at the door. "Only she can enter." Nia nodded. "It's okay." She took a deep breath and walked inside. The hall was as she remembered, wide marble floors, steel rafters, the seal of the academy etched into the glass above. But now, a live broadcast camera was pointed directly at the podium, the same podium where General Alden had once said, "Not everyone belongs here." She stepped up to it and faced the camera. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She gripped the edge of the wood to steady herself. The light turned red. She was live. "Some of you may remember me," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I was the recruit who failed the obstacle course, who couldn't keep up in formation, who was mocked for her skin, her body, her presence." She paused. "Of you watched a clip of me getting laughed off this very ground. But none of you saw what came after." She looked down briefly, gathering herself. "You didn't see me bleed in silence. You didn't see me train in the dark. You didn't see the nights I lay awake, wondering if maybe they were right, that I didn't belong." The chat feed exploded. Viewers across the world poured in by the hundreds of thousands. Her name trended instantly. "But here's the thing about pain," she continued. "It teaches, it hardens. And if you survive, it can turn you into something stronger than any uniform ever could." The door behind her opened quietly. A presence entered the hall. General Alden. He stood silently in the back, arms folded. But this time, he didn't interrupt. "I stand here today not to prove them wrong," Naya said, her voice rising. "I'm here to remind everyone watching that silence helps them win. Shame helps them erase us. But truth, that's our weapon. I survived their abuse, and now I'm here to expose it." At that moment, Dana flipped the switch remotely. Across every major platform, Max began dropping the archives, the leaked recordings from inside the academy, the buried complaints, the rigged evaluations, the entire system, exposed. Nia stepped back from the podium. For every girl who felt she wasn't enough, for every black recruit who was told to tone it down, for every whistleblower buried and forgotten, I see you, and we're not backing down. Thunderous applause erupted from the crowds outside, but inside the hall it was deathly silent. General Alden walked forward slowly. "Bold speech," he said coldly. "But you've done more damage than good." "I exposed the truth," she said. "You embarrassed the institution." "I didn't come here to be liked," she replied. "I came here to finish what I started." He stepped closer. "You're a traitor." She didn't move. "I'm a soldier." And then glass shattered overhead. A bullet ricocheted off the metal beam near Naya's head. Chaos exploded. "Snipers!" Everyone ducked. Outside, Max screamed through the comms. "Get her out now. We've been compromised." Kiara and Rafe stormed. Through the doors, weapons drawn. "Extraction point. North stairwell." Rafe barked. They grabbed Nia and ran. A second bullet tore through the marble. Screams echoed behind them as security tackled the sniper on the west roof. But Naya knew this wasn't just one man. This was war. Back in the SUV. Dana's face had gone pale. "It started," she said, eyes wide. "They're wiping networks, flooding fake documents, twisting every word she said. They're calling her a domestic terrorist." Max's fingers flew across the keyboard. No, they can't outpace the truth now. Not this time. We're backed up on 100 mirrors. Blockchain copies, global feeds." Kiara, breathless, dragged Nia into the vehicle. "We have to go dark." "No," Nia gasped. "Not yet. If we run, they win." "You want to die a hero?" Rafe snapped. "Or live to change the world." But just then, the car jerked. Something had hit the engine. A truck blocked the road ahead. Armed men poured out, faces hidden. "We're boxed in." Max yelled. Everyone scrambled. Rafe and Kiara opened fire from behind the doors. Dana pulled out her sidearm. Nia crouched low, scanning for a way out. "Mika," she whispered, "where would you hide a back door?" Then she remembered the tunnels. "Back route under the library," she shouted. "There's a tunnel from the old cadet housing to the external wall." Kiara kicked the rear door open. "Move." They bolted down the side street, dodging bullets, smoke clouding the air. By the time they reached the rusted cellar hatch, Max was bleeding from his shoulder, and Dana was limping. Nia ripped open the door and led them into the dark. "We can't keep running like this," Rafe muttered. "We won't," Nia said. "One last move, one final message." In the tunnel, they found an old comm station, abandoned, but still connected to the military shortwave. Dana blinked. "You think that thing still works?" "We only need one signal," Nia said. She grabbed the mic. This is Recruit Nia Carter. We are under attack by forces loyal to a corrupt system. We are not armed rebels. We are truth tellers. They fear us because we won't shut up. If you can hear this, share it, copy it, spread it. The radio crackled, a voice came through. You're not alone. Then another dot and another. Across the world people answered. Veterans, civilians, journalists, students, families, soldiers. The world was finally listening, but outside, the tunnel shadows moved. More were coming, and this time, they were bringing everything. Barricade the entrance, Kiara said. No, Nia replied, standing. I'm going out. Don't be stupid. I'm not hiding anymore. She turned to them, her voice calm. They made me their symbol. It's time I show them what that means. Kiara's face twisted in pain. You might not come back. I don't need to. I just need to be seen. Outside, under the burning morning sun, Nia stepped forward alone. The soldiers raised their weapons. She raised her hands, and the world watched, breath held. What would happen now? Would they shoot? Would they silence her? Or had the tides finally turned? The screen went black. One word appeared on every broadcast. The wind stirred gently across the academy grounds. Cameras, both official and hidden, captured every frame. The world had been watching, frozen in a collective breath. Ever since Nia Carter walked alone onto the open field with her hands raised, she had no weapons, no armor, just truth. Opposite her stood a dozen black-clad tactical soldiers, the same unit that once ignored her cries during training, the same one that failed to intervene when Micah died. They were here now, guns trained on her, waiting for the order. The voice in her earpiece came through, soft and urgent. Rafe, Nia, they're aiming for a takedown. Please come back. Please. She didn't answer. Her eyes met the squad leader's, a tall man with a skull emblem on his vest. His fingers hovered over the trigger. His eyes flickered with recognition. She remembered him. He was the one who laughed loudest when she fell during her first field run. Now, he didn't move. I'm not your enemy, Nia said, her voice clear, amplified by the drone mic circling overhead. You were trained to believe people like me are a threat. I was trained to believe I didn't belong. We were both lied to. The wind carried her words beyond the campus walls, into homes, offices, phones. I came back not to fight, she continued, but to finish what my brother started. Gasps erupted across social media as Dana streamed Mika's never-before-seen final recording. It played side by side with Nia's broadcast, Micah standing in a cold barracks room, whispering into his phone. This system doesn't want change. It wants obedience. And if I disappear, it won't be an accident. The video ended. Silence returned. The squad leader lowered his rifle. One by one, others followed. Nia's heart pounded. From behind the barracks, Kiara appeared, hands up. Walking beside Rafe, Dana, bruised but determined, emerged with Max, who now had his arm in a sling and a determined fire in his eyes. And then sound rolled over the hills. Wheels. Trucks. Hundreds of veterans were arriving, some in wheelchairs, some holding signs, some wearing old worn uniforms from campaigns long forgotten. They had come from every state, every base, every branch. Not for war, but for her. Reporters swarmed them, but they didn't stop. They marched in silence to the gates of the academy and stood there, unmoving, united. The academy command post scrambled inside. General Alden paced like a trapped wolf. Get her off the field, he barked into the phone. Shut it all down. His aide stepped forward, pale-faced. Sir, there's something else. He turned sharply. What? She handed him a document. Classified. Top clearance. An executive order. Signed that morning by the defense secretary. All eyes scanned the bold print. Immediate review of the academy's operations. Pending full investigation. Effective now. His face collapsed. Outside, the crowd shifted. The academy gates opened. For the first time in its history, they opened wide, not for war games or parades but for protest. General Alden stepped out slowly, flanked by armed security. His medals glinted in the morning sun. He approached Nia with stiff shoulders and fury in his eyes. You've done irreparable damage. She stared him down. Truth hurts. You think this is over? She took a slow breath. No, she replied. This is just the beginning. Click. Dana captured the moment. The photo went viral in seconds. Alden, glaring at the young black woman who'd brought his empire crashing down by nightfall. He was placed on administrative leave. By morning, headlines across the globe read, Black woman recruit topples military giant. The girl they mocked now teaches courage. Nia Carter, the name they can't erase. Weeks passed. The academy underwent a full restructuring. Leadership changed. A whistleblower protection unit was installed. And for the first time ever, a civilian review board was granted oversight over its programs. 1 month later, Nia returned. Not as a cadet, but as an invited guest, standing on the same stage where she had once been laughed at. She looked over at a crowd of young recruits, diverse, nervous, hopeful. Among them were girls who had written her letters, boys who had whispered thank you as she walked past. She smiled, took a breath, and began. When I first came here, I was taught to fight harder, run faster, stay silent. I thought the only way to survive was to become like them. But now I know true strength isn't how loud you shout or how hard you hit. She paused. It's the courage to be exactly who you are, even when the world tells you to be smaller. The recruits erupted into applause. Some cried, some saluted, after the ceremony. As she stepped down, a young girl ran up to her, dark-skinned, glasses crooked, voice trembling. I want to be like you. Nia knelt to meet her eyes. Don't, she whispered. Be better. That night, under a quiet sky, Nia walked alone past the old obstacle course. The wind carried faint echoes, laughter, pain, determination. At the wall she once failed to climb, she paused, then climbed it in 3 seconds flat. At the top, she stood and looked out over the campus. Free, alive, unbroken. A single tear traced down her cheek as Micah's words echoed in her memory. They don't get to define you. You do, she whispered into the night. We did it, big brother. Then climbed down and walked forward. Award, whatever came next, because she was no longer the girl they mocked. She was the woman who made history.